start with this. Well, Teofimo Lopez, undisputed champion to some, unified champion to others, very recently said Josh Taylor is now avoiding him, using undisputed label as a cover. Josh Taylor was calling me out before. Yeah, I want Teofimo and this and that, Lopez said on Inside Boxing Live. And now he's saying that I'm not undisputed because his team is telling him that and because they want to avoid me. Taylor's team want to avoid me. They have a mandatory right now, Jack Catterall. Folks don't understand that. There are past interviews of him talking about me. Now he's just, I'm getting better, and I think that they feel that it's all about that energy I bring to the table.
Teofimo's not lying.
Shortly after the Vasyl-Lomachenko fight, there was an interest expressed from Josh Taylor to lock horns with young Teofimo because Josh felt Teofimo was getting a little bit too big in the britches, getting a big head, walking around with a chip on his shoulder, and I do remember that. Lopez added, it would be a great fight, a phenomenal fight. It would actually be at my weight. Not that I'm not comfortable now, but right now I'm stopping my potential as a fighter. 140 is where I'm most comfortable at, and people would get to see my full arsenal. You'll get to see everything. I think Taylor's team knows that. With Teofimo, you can't worry about one thing, my speed, my power, my ring IQ, my footwork, my inside work, and I can fight backwards. That's a lot of things that they have to worry about. There's so many elusive things. I can go southpaw, and once again, Teofimo's not wrong. Teofimo isn't lying. There actually was an interest expressed from Josh Taylor to face Teofimo Lopez shortly after Teofimo took the belts away from Vasyl-Lomachenko. That bit of it is true. And that interest, it doesn't seem to have lasted very long, as now Josh doesn't seem as interested as Teofimo as he did before. It's possible he changed his mind. It is what it is. If you ask me, do I think Josh Taylor
scared?
He's afraid of Teofimo Lopez? Yeah, I'm not buying that. Listen, I told you before, I think what Teofimo managed to accomplish in this short amount of time, I think it's great, but I don't see someone in Teofimo Lopez that Josh Taylor needs to avoid, because Teofimo's claim to fame, the best scalp on his resume, is in fact a naturally smaller fighter than himself, who's very skilled, yes, but decided to go out there and not throw any punches for the first 4 or 5 rounds of their fight. You'll excuse me for saying so, but I don't expect that Josh Taylor will take that same approach with a smaller, much smaller man than himself. I've no doubts that Teofimo would be a lot more comfortable at 140 than he is now at 135, because I didn't forget, before he fought Vasyl-Lomachenko, before that fight actually came into being, he was applying pressure on Vasyl-Lomachenko and the people over there at Top Rank to make the fight because he's busting at the seams. He's ready to move up. I didn't forget all of that from last year. Teofimo is squeezing into the lightweight division. He's ready to move up, at least he said he was, sometime last year. That was before he fought Vasyl-Lomachenko.
This is a very different fight you're talking about.
And we've been all through this. We've touched on the differences between a Lomachenko fight and a Josh Taylor fight, and how both of those fights are just wildly different fights, wildly different opponents, very different situations, and that, in a nutshell, what may have worked against Vasyl-Lomachenko may not work against Josh Taylor because he's a naturally bigger fighter than Vasyl-Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez. One thing that's in the back of my mind right now is that the Kambosos fight ended up getting moved to August as a result of Teofimo Lopez testing positive for COVID-19. There's widespread speculation that he's not actually sick, and the real reason the fight got moved is because this weekend's too crowded to try and stage a pay-per-view. There are people that feel that way. I understand those people. But in the event that Teofimo Lopez is actually sick, he's actually symptomatic because he actually contracted COVID-19, there's no guarantees that he'll be in tip-top shape by the time that August gets here. I mean, Rachel Ball, when she contracted COVID, she suffered symptoms of COVID-19 for weeks, many, many, many weeks after what is being described as long COVID. Different people have different bouts with this novel coronavirus, and Rachel Ball,
she ended up with long COVID.
I think about that, and I think about young Teofimo's pre-existing condition, asthma. He's already got breathing problems, this kid. And I wonder that he'll be in tip-top shape and ready to fight, ready to defend his titles by August 14th when When you think about it, it's just a matter of weeks. It's just a matter of weeks. It's not that far away.
We're already halfway through June.
Rachel Ball was incapacitated for many weeks after having contracted COVID-19. Alexander Povetkin, between his first fight with Dillian Whyte and his second fight with Dillian Whyte, in between there, he contracted COVID-19.
And the fight ended up getting pushed back.
It ended up getting rescheduled, and we know how it ended. We know what happened. Alexander, he really didn't look himself in that fight. Some people attributed it to age. Others attributed it to the COVID-19 that he contracted beforehand. You have to have these things in mind when Teofimo Lopez says. Teofimo Lopez, who actually has a pre-existing condition. You have to have these things in mind when he says that he's contracted COVID-19 and he's symptomatic. Could the COVID affect Teofimo Lopez's performance the way it's affected Rachel Ball, the way it affected Alexander Povetkin, potentially affected him, because that's what his handlers seem to think?
That's what they said.
There are approximately 8 weeks between now and August 14th, and what Teofimo ideally would have to do is get over this COVID virus, get over this thing, get over these symptoms, and still find time to have what looks to be a 6-week camp to prepare for George Kambosos, whilst still recovering from the virus.
Can he pull that off?
It's conceivable that these comments from Teofimo Lopez in reference to Josh Taylor, it's possible that all of this interview in its entirety was conducted before Teofimo's fight with George actually got rescheduled. It's possible that all of this was said before he was diagnosed with COVID. Though when all of this was said is besides the point, because this is the situation now. It seems that Teofimo Lopez has 2 fights he's got to fight in, 2 battles, before it even becomes about Josh Taylor, if it ever becomes about Josh Taylor.
He's got to fight off COVID.
Get past that and then hope that he can still get past George. In other news, Deontay Wilder says, "I hate Fury now. We're dealing with a known drug cheat. I'll do more than punish him." I'm going to do more than punish him. I'm going to do the most brutal thing you can come up with in your mind, Wilder said. "I hate him now. I think nothing of him. There is bad blood and it will always be there. Hate is a motivation to destroy. That's what the devil does every day. I've never felt this way about any opponent before. Dominic Brazier was the latest.
The last.
One I dislike the most."
Oh, he's possessed by the devil now.
Oh, you better call that in Lorraine.
Can we get a priest in here?
A lot of people are looking and listening in, but on July 24th, we will reveal it all, he said. The layoff has been good for me and bad for him because I have had time to progress. They should have got me earlier, but they ran and tried to dodge me after I had done right by him and put food on his family's table. A lot of things will be different. The world will see. During the pandemic, I trained non-stop, and I have been building. I was feeling nothing. And we were very confident because we knew we were in the right, and they knew that as well, he said. I was training when the arbitration call came, and when I heard, we trained even harder. Justice was served in that part, and now it will be served to me on July 24th. We are dealing with a known drug cheat, Wilder said. Anyone knows that gloves don't fold or bend 90 degrees. People didn't care about what they saw. Wilder says that his ambition of being the man that unifies all the titles has been dented by the defeat. The mission is the same. It never changed, he said. One champion, one face, one name, one constant line of bullshit. I've been looking around out there in the boxing cosmos, seeing what the junkies are saying. And seems I'm not the only one that thinks this entire fiasco might be scripted, that to some degree what we're seeing is all preordained, orchestrated. The only real question is, how deep does the rabbit hole go? If this is scripted or if this is planned, if there was never going to be a Joshua versus Fury fight, does that then mean that the outcomes of this trilogy are also preordained? I can't tell you. I don't have the answer. There are many scenarios associated with what could be going on here, though if you want to take everything you're seeing at face value,
That's what you want to do.
if you want to play along with this story in the exact sequence that it's being presented to you, if you're just going to take it for what it is, the same way you take the WWE for what it is, or a scripted melodrama on Channel 7, if you're going to do that, all right, let's get a look at this thing. What's Deontay Wilder crying about? Why does he keep making light of Tyson Fury's sketchy past, his sketchy history when he didn't all of a sudden become a drug cheat when he beat you. He was all those things and more before you even fought him. And you decided to give him an opportunity anyway, before Dillian White, before Anthony Joshua. You decided to give a known drug cheat with a sketchy past an opportunity to win your WBC title instead of those two guys. So whatever you've suffered as a result of that, it's your own fucking fault.
Oh, I bet you wish you would have fought Dillian White now.
Assuming this entire trilogy, in its entirety, isn't some scripted melodrama, because some people seem to think that it is, and I don't dismiss that possibility. But once again, if you're going to play along with this sad story of sour grapes, Tyson Fury doesn't get to fight for the WBC title unless you let him. Tyson Fury doesn't get to cheat you in the second fight, or the first one the way you think he did. None of that happens unless you allow it to happen. And you allowed it to happen. I mean, whether this is a cherry pick gone wrong or a plot hole in this scripted melodrama, one way or another, we don't get here without your involvement.
Right?
You could have gave Dillian White that opportunity to fight for the WBC title. You could have seen about becoming an undisputed champion with Anthony Joshua before you fought Tyson Fury and after you fought Tyson Fury. You're going on about how you put food on his family's table and you gave him an opportunity and he's a known drug cheat, that's what we're dealing with. Well, you decided to deal with that in 2018. That's on you, my friend.
You're not a victim.
You know what it could be? It could be that before their initial meeting, these two guys got together and decided to collude in order to freeze Anthony Joshua out. Maybe they put their heads together and decided that they'd rather have a trilogy with each other than allow Anthony Joshua the opportunity to procure that last brass ring, that green belt. Maybe that's what happened, and maybe after the second fight, Tyson Fury reneged on the deal, or tried to. I'm not completely sure I believe that, but that's another scenario you can entertain, and that's why Deontay Wilder, here and now, resembles a petulant child throwing his toys out of the pram due to a situation he brought upon himself. You soiled your own diaper, buddy. That guy wouldn't have got to fight for that green belt unless you decided to give him that opportunity, and that's what you did. Your sycophants aren't going to tell you that. Your fanboys aren't. They're going to carry on about how Tyson Fury's got this sketchy past.
He's a drug cheat.
He tested positive for nandrolone, I know. Years before he fought Deontay Wilder, yet Deontay Wilder chose to give him a title shot anyway, so you can't cry about it now.
Luis Ortiz tested positive for banned substances 2 times.
And you didn't see Deontay Wilder crying about it. He still gave that guy 2 opportunities to win that belt from him. He still gave him 2 title fights, voluntarily. Same way he did with Tyson Fury. So what's the difference here? Well, the difference is Tyson Fury beat Wilder from pillar to post. That is, if you're going to take this story, this fiasco, at face value, the difference is Tyson Fury succeeded where Luis Ortiz did not. Now, Tyson Fury tested positive for a banned substance the same way that Luis Ortiz did, but the difference is Tyson Fury actually beat Deontay Wilder.
Luis Ortiz didn't.
So what? You're supposed to be Mother Teresa because you gave a known drug cheat the opportunity to beat you, and he ended up beating you? What? We're supposed to feel sorry for you because your cherry pick went wrong, because it went sideways? Because if I'm going to take this story at face value, if I can the conspiracy theories and just take it for what it is, neither Deontay Wilder or his fans
Neither of them
were all that concerned with Tyson Fury's sketchy past in 2018. They weren't worried about it leading up to the first fight. They weren't even worried about it leading up to the second fight. And it didn't seem to have become an issue until Deontay Wilder lost. He lost the belt. All of a sudden, now it's a problem. Now it's an issue.
Do you remember that they were talking down Anthony Joshua and talking up Tyson Fury?
To try and justify why Deontay Wilder decided to fight Tyson Fury instead of Anthony Joshua, saying that he's the lineal champion, he's the better fighter, he's the better scalp anyway. Well, look how all of that worked out, guys.
When you lie down with dogs, you end up with fleas.
So you decided to give a known cheater an opportunity to cheat, and now you're saying that he cheated.
It's either you're a moron or this is a very poorly written story.
And to be completely honest, neither would surprise me. Scripted melodrama or cherry pick gone wrong. Could be either one. And just in keeping with the theme of all things Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury says Wilder is dangerous, would knock out Joshua in the first round. Portion of the article reads, he feels confident Wilder would knock Joshua out inside of a round. He's quoted as saying, I'll deal with these guys, Joshua and Eddie Hearn, later. The most important thing to me is Wilder, the most dangerous heavyweight in the world, who would knock out Joshua in the first round, he exclusively told Sky Sports. And, Tyson Fury went on to say a couple other things we've already talked about here on the channel. The story here is that we're back to this. We're back to playing this game where Tyson Fury is attempting to convince the boxing community at large that he is not seeking refuge in a third Wilder fight from a single Anthony Joshua fight. Oh, now you're back to talking up this guy, huh?
The most dangerous heavyweight in the world.
There really are more convincing ways of selling a fight. And I think that's what Tyson Fury's doing here. I mean, he's back to downplaying Anthony Joshua's opponent, downplaying Anthony Joshua himself. We are back to this. And it's kind of obvious what's going on. You're downplaying Anthony Joshua because you're about to fight someone else. Someone not named Anthony Joshua. Someone named Deontay Wilder for the third time.
Those tired old gimmicks.
And that same old shtick just doesn't retain the same novelty it did the first time or even the second time out. At this point, just getting repetitious. Let's throw up a few big dossers.
There's only one Tyson Fury.
At this point, you could set your watch by this stuff.
Meanwhile, Bob's blaming Eddie Hearn for the fight's collapse.
And good luck to him selling that bridge. I mean, this is all predictable.
The both of them need new material.
I mean, whether this trilogy is scripted or not, at this point, it's all just getting very repetitious. Talk down Joshua because you're not fighting him, and talk up the guy you are fighting, Deontay Wilder, who we've already seen you fight 2 times.
2.
And this will be the third.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming.